Hello everyone. Welcome to Friday's version of Take 5, where we take 5 minutes or so and go through some pertinent verses of Scripture, this time in the book of James, and apply them to our lives. And today we are actually finishing the book of James. So if you are looking at Take 5 for the first time, you're coming in at the tail end of a very applicational letter that talks to our everyday life. And we're just going to finish it. And we're going to continue. Let me tell you this, everyone that's watching. Starting next week, then we will continue Take 5, and we're going to go to another portion of Scripture that is another one of my favorites, and that is the Sermon on the Mount, which is Jesus' in a sense, first extended sermon to his disciples. Really, again, very, very pertinent. I'm sort of convinced James might have been there, being the half-brother of Jesus, listening to his brother speaking, because you hear echoes of the Sermon on the Mount in the letter of James. We'll see that when we get there. So that's Sermon on the Mount starting on Monday, and that's Matthew 5, 6, and 7. Gospel of Matthew, chapters 5, 6, and 7. We'll start that on Monday. But today we finish the book of James. Remember, it's a pertinent book to followers of Christ that because of some persecution are scattered all over the place. And James is writing a letter to his flock that are all over the place. Very practical letter about how to live and how to make sure that your faith and your actions line up. And so the letter ends in a very particular way. It ends with a call to action. And it's a call to action for, in a sense, for any of us who are Christ followers living among other Christ followers in a community. And it's a call to action basically saying, if because of the difficult times or because of the immoral days or for whatever reason, if you see someone who is walking away from the faith, who is turning from Christ, go get them. In love, go rescue them. That's what he's saying. And so as I read these, maybe you think of somebody who used to name the name of Christ, or maybe who's straying way off second base and they're going to get tagged out any minute now. He's talking to any one of us that knows of believers. Maybe it's your teenage kid, or maybe it's a good friend. If you know someone that is straying away from the faith, either by their actions, by their inaction, or maybe even by their beliefs, they're so much into other things now that Christianity doesn't matter. Go rescue them. Listen to these words. I'll just talk about them as I read them, but they're really pertinent. He says this, James 5, last two verses, 19 and 20. He says, "My brothers and sisters, if any among you wanders from the truth," good description, wanders from the truth. The word for wander, actually in the original text, is the Greek word that we get the word for planet. So think of a planet that's sort of wandering in outer space. It can be deliberate, or it can almost be not deliberate, passive, but they are wandering from their orbit, from where they should be. If you know of someone that is wandering from the truth, and the truth is more than just a belief system, as you know from James, it certainly is a belief system. If you know someone that's wandering from the truth, that now believes other things that are not Christian doctrine, then maybe they believe that they're the fourth person of the Trinity. Just kidding. If they're wandering from the truth propositionally, or you know James, truth and action go together. Faith and works go together. If they're wandering from the truth by their actions, if they're living a lifestyle that's contrary to the truth, if you know somebody like that, he says, and someone brings him back, in essence, that's what he's saying. Go get him. Bring him back. Verse 20, last verse. Let that person know, let the one who brings them back know that whoever brings back, he calls him a sinner, the one that's wandered from the truth, brings back a sinner from his wandering, listen to what he says, will do two things, will save his soul from death. Boy, that sounds odd. If this is a believer, I don't think he's saying, I know he's not saying he'll lose his salvation, because I don't believe that that's true. Once you are in the family of God, you can't get out. Save his soul from death. There could be the temporal consequences of a life that continues to sin. It could also just be a description of the wages of sin is death. Every time somebody sins, you and I sin, something dies. And so if you're sinning against your spouse, something's dying a little bit each time, and eventually maybe your marriage will die. It could include that. Or it could also say, it would be about save his soul from death, meaning if you bring somebody back, there's a doctrine in Reformed theology called perseverance of the saints. Someone who truly is redeemed will persevere in their faith, meaning they will come back. And so maybe it's your role, lovingly, carefully, graciously, to rescue the wanderer. You will save their soul from death, and you will cover a multitude of sins, meaning they could be on this path for the longest time, and the consequences of their lifestyle may not only affect them, but all kinds of people. If in love and in grace you go rescue the wanderer, you are doing a really good thing. So that's my charge to you this weekend. Maybe you know someone that's wandered a bit from the truth. Pray for them. Have a relationship with them. I hope you do. And then think of gracious, loving, clear ways that maybe you could go rescue them. We're done with James. Starting on Monday, we'll begin the Sermon on the Mount. Give it a read if you like. Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7. I hope these have been helpful. And we went a little longer than 5. I'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Ciao.